What's up, guys? Rugus808 here. Welcome to Two Trigger Pass, episode 3, if not mistaken. I am Rugus808, your host, lovely host. Joined here
No one
by...
cares about him.
Oh, I mean, that's pretty true. People only care about Frayed Hero!
No, dude, you mean Dynamis808? He's the one.
Oh, yeah, of course. And as you can clearly
One that
tell,
everyone hates.
joined here with Frayed Hero, Fallen Winter, and Katsuko.
What's up?
Get a call.
Hey.
What? You really haven't?
Oh, get a Cox.
get a clock.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Anyway, we're here to talk about guarding and the, I guess, magic behind it and the theory. Guarding.
Dude,
So, we'll make this really quick. Guarding, just no guard, everything. Save cards in hand, good.
yeah, you don't need a guard. No guard is the answer.
Exactly.
And then when
You also
when they
run...
guard you, just always put on the vanguard. That's how you win.
Of course.
Perfect guard. If you check a triple crit, you'll break the perfect guard.
Exactly. One day, maybe one day that'll actually be a thing.
That's the dream.
Yeah,
That'll actually be the dream when...
it is. It's called playing Dimensional Robos.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Okay. It's kind of true.
But yeah, figured we just talk about just general like concepts of guarding and applying
Like winter
triggers and
guard.
other stuff like that.
Yeah. So, one thing I've
yeah.
heard about is I want to see what do you guys think of it. Guarding early, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I usually do if they rush me, but unless they do, I just take it in most cases. Unless I feel like I don't need the damage, or they're going to
I mean,
give
it
me a lot of
depends
damage.
on your deck, though, and what their deck is.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll just say like a
Yeah.
general guideline. Like if someone's just starting to play and they're like a little confused of should I guard early or not, just like really basis maybe, or base like time or base like set, I guess, which would probably be like if your opponent's probably not hitting you for a solid number, so if it's like 13 to your 9, then guarding might be good if you don't need counterblast.
It
If
also
anything,
depends on
I'd say.
It's really hard
Yeah.
to generalize.
It's yeah, unfortunately it's, I don't know, it's just one of those things where okay, the one situation I can think of off the top of my head that is a little more established on what you probably should be doing is, let's say they drop two 7Ks in front row on their first attack and they have like a 10K or like a 10K shield vanguard or 10K guard vanguard for like a 1 to pass or something. In that case, if they attack with a rear guard first, which they probably will if that's the situation, you want to be no guarding that first attack, just because that increases your chances of getting that trigger.
But
And
that also
stopping the
depends
most
if
attacks.
you
At least I feel like.
know there are a clan or a deck that does not run stands.
Or if you feel like they're not going to be running a lot of them, then it still might be a little more worth it. But overall, yeah, just because.
Arguably, though, in that same sense, it is sensible to guard the first one if you're afraid of the crit, though, because if you don't hit the damage trigger, you're still probably no guarding, and you just went to 3 when you could have 10k shielded, and at least blocked an attack, 5k shielded, 5k.
Okay, yeah. Although I feel like if they're swinging in with the second attack anyway, it may not be worth guarding the first one if it then forces you to take the next one because you didn't get that extra trigger. So yeah, like as you can see, it gets a lot more complicated than necessarily easy to explain.
Because if you think about it too, it always depends on your matchup. Since, if you're playing against a deck that you want to guard early against because, they're going to have a strong late game like Nova Grapplers, then you want to get your damage triggers later than earlier. That's a way to try to get, yourself some potential damage triggers like against Aquaforce too.
Yeah.
But I mean, against like Nova Grapplers and Aquaforce, though, isn't it normally better to kind of guard in the early game anyway, just because of the fact that what Frayed Hero was saying, but also too that their push turns seem a lot less intimidating when you are at like 2 to 3 damage or like 2 damage or something.
I suppose, yeah, but at the same, it
I mean, I guess it kind of
Yeah,
like depends
but
on
also-
triggers as well, but in
Yeah,
general,
'cause
like
if
it,
they
like being
are-
able to be at low damage during like either the Aqua Force or Nova Grappler's like first stride. Okay, Nova Grappler's being a little bit more scary because they have Vic 10 and all that, but or Bustard, I guess, or whatever. But the Nova Grappler like after first stride, if you're at low damage, it feels a lot better to be at than opposed to like taking some of the early game stuff and being like 3 or 4 or something like that,
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it always depends on your match. It's deck knowledge is a very vital thing to have.
Definitely.
I guess it's always valuable to know though, to also when, like in the example that we're giving, so if your opponent throws 2 7Ks in the front row and you're a 7K Vanguard and your opponent's like, having a 12K attacker or 12K like Vanguard attacking with boosted, it usually be thinking of, okay, if I get a trigger then this might happen. If it's a stand trigger, if it's like against Angel Feather or something, then that might still hurt a lot more. Can I afford to do that? XYZ sort of stuff. So I feel like you always need to evaluate the situation. If it's Angel Feathers, they're going to be running probably like 8 to maybe even 12 stands, possibly more consistently towards the 8 though. So it's a pretty good chance you're going to hit a stand. So you might be guarding differently as opposed to if it's the same field and you're playing against Aqua Force, let's say, then you're more than likely just going to take the first attack, because if they don't hit a trigger, or if you hit a trigger, then they have to attack Vanguard, and they don't hit a trigger, then they just wasted a 5K in the front row, or 5K shield, I meant to say. But yeah, so just kind of like, I guess, a summary of what we're talking about. So probably just in general,
So
it might, you just need to evaluate the situation.
So in the very concise, too long didn't read version, didn't listen to all of that. It's just
Concise.
very matchup, probably.
More than likely.
But
yeah.
yeah, pay attention to the matchup and just generally, the more you know about your opponent's cards, as little interaction there is in this game compared to other ones with your opponent, just kind of know what you're potentially dealing with, because that increases your ability to know how to guard and manipulate the situation to your advantage and prepare for certain outcomes.
Yeah, so that's mainly on like early game guarding, since it sometimes can help quite a bit, but sometimes it can probably kill you more than you wanted it to, I guess, or it can kill you without you really wanting it to. I guess also guarding too. So like, do you guard a first stride? Is that something you do normally?
Of course, it depends what they strode into.
But I mean, like, on average though, I guess. Like, I
Even
feel like,
with that, it's just, it depends on what the actual stride is the thing. So it's like, on average, I'm going to see a lot of Kagero, and most of their stuff isn't going to do anything on hit because that's not where they're going in. Well, okay, no, I lied. Now they are because of, what's-his-face. Which,
yeah.
if you can afford it, yeah. I mean, if you need your rear guards, then you probably should. But unless you can't if you can't afford it, then, I mean, there's not much you can really do about it, unfortunately. It's very
deck related.
gray area, yeah, because some decks you don't want them to get their on hits off. Other ones you can afford to do it.
Like, if you have a G guard and you went first, you might actually just
Oh,
want to
well, there's
G
also that.
guard for your GB.
Yeah, the G guards also kind of adds a new level, I guess, to striding to guarding. Just because if you're, if they're first striding, but you get the G guard first and be at GB2, then that could be pretty good. If you're like, I don't know, playing Aqua Force and you're G guarding and then first striding into Lambros, that's it's pretty good or something. So it might be worth to actually guard first stride, even if it's not that scary, if you can go be at GB2 before your opponent can. I mean, that also depends if it actually matters. But, and I guess also G guards, like, in kind of related to guarding, G guards has pretty much not completely killed off, but have definitely made some decks a lot less scary, kind of like Diablo, since the stride Diablo, it's like, oh no, I can't guard if I don't sack units, well, I can just
Oh wait,
G-guard.
I've got 2 heal triggers.
Yeah, so it's definitely, G guards have definitely made guarding a lot easier, and made the game a little bit more interesting, considering for Kagros they can do stuff on, during your opponent's turn. Denial, retire the attacking vanguard, defeat flare, get rid of the back row. Kind of goes around resist as well for the clans that have it in the back row.
Yeah.
So it's always, even if it's your turn, you have to kind of consider, what your opponent's gonna be guarding with, and for playing against Kagros, like how can you still attack that would still be good, even if they retire, either your back row or your attacking row or both.
To be fair,
Or how do you
have to pay attention, because if you just go vanguard to rear guard, you can't get denied whatsoever. So
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's always just playing it smart. I guess that's probably the overall too long did not read sort of thing of this video, is just always know what you're playing against and what is going to be the best option against that matchup. So it kind of boils down to playing a lot of Vanguard, which is pretty much what this meta is now, what the game's all about. Just being able to play enough Vanguard to know, this is, this guard's gonna be good because of this, or pretty much I should be doing this the entire way through, or if I want to beat this deck, then I need to do this.
Yeah, for the most part, it's just, as simple as this game is, it does get to that point where just knowing your matchups is going to make your ability to play against other decks that much better. Because on top of what I was saying earlier, like with just the interactions and stuff not being that existent, just the ability to know how the deck will potentially play, what their combos are, it makes it that much easier to prevent them from doing their plays if you're a control deck, or waiting for the right opportunity to pretty much stop them from, how to go off before they're actually doing their skills and stuff, and kind of planning around what they're still missing, and just being able to interpret what that means for your deck.
Yeah, so just making the best possible moves that also doesn't screw you over if your opponent does something, that you weren't expecting, I guess, too.
Yeah.
And then I guess the most important thing is, if your opponent 2 trigger passes, do you go all on the Vanguard? I mean, we clearly know what the answer
If we're
is.
being realistic, you always go all on the Vanguard.
Of course.
Always.
And if we're not being realistic,
Then you count
then
triggers
always
and triggers.
It largely depends on, a bunch of other factors, just like every other thing we've talked about so far. Overall, it really does depend on the situation. If you don't have the choice, I mean, obviously you're going to stick it all in the Vanguard, because where else would you put it? But in various other situations, you also need one of the largest factors that easily determines whether or not it is, in fact, better to put it all in the Vanguard is if you know what cards they have in their hand and whether or not they can actually guard you, or guard your rear guard, even if you apply triggers to it, it is usually better if they give the opportunity to just stick everything on your Vanguard. Because that means you have that chance of winning right then and there, instead of putting everything on your rear guard and then having them not lose anyway, especially if this is like your final turn and you're going to die if you are still alive.
Also, I just want to point out, it's standing rear guard, just in case. Since we're kind of implying that you will have a standing Vanguard when this happens.
Or standing rear guard, yeah.
Yeah.
unless
In most cases, yeah. Because if you run stand triggers, then that changes things relatively.
Then you need to consider that too, and yeah. I guess for me, if I'm put in that situation, either for 2 to 3 trigger pass, it's always counting how many triggers are outside of the deck and how much deck I still have. So if there's like a 50-50 chance, unless I'm absolutely like dying the next turn, like this is my actual last turn, then the correct answer should be always to just go on the Vanguard. Since even if you're dying next turn, just having the small hope that you might win is a lot better than knowing that you're going to die. So I mean, I guess like that might be one of the more general like points, which is kind of more rare, I guess, in a game of Vanguard, but it's kind of more a definite key of advice that we could probably give. But that's kind of also just like you need to know whether or not you're actually going to be dying, during your opponent's turn, I guess. And not just kind of like you guess that you're going to be dying and then you somehow survived.
Yeah.
Just knowing that too, so just kind of knowing that. But yeah, so if you know exactly, if you played a little bit of Vanguard and you know that you're going to die during your opponent's next turn, then yeah, just put it on the Vanguard. Even if the odds are really low, you have nothing to lose. But if that's not the case, then yeah, you check your hand, damage, drop, see how much is left. I don't know. I feel like for me, if I'm gonna be, probably surviving my next opponent's turn, for me it'd probably be like 70%, like, a good 3/4 of a chance of like drive checking. I might consider on the Vanguard, but it's always gonna be safer to put on the rear guard. Like I feel like it's probably the most ballsy thing to just on Vanguard, because if you go all in the Vanguard, then and you whiff, then that's pretty bad. Just lost 5k or 5k and a crit or whatever, just for just being balls out. But it's probably safer to just keep going with the safer option, which is going to be just rear guard, even if you do get that double crit and your opponent's at 3. It's the it could have been situation, but maybe that double crit on rear guard still kills them, in which case then the safer option wins. But it's a lot better than when having only one trigger you drove checked, and it's kind of like, well, crap, this kind of sucks now. I'm in a worse position. Hopefully that helps in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, since I don't know, was there anything else about guarding? Honestly, since it's pretty much like the beginning and mid is, I feel like, the most like questions you can have about guarding, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it still, once again, comes down to just knowing the decks and everything. In this case, it also probably helps to be able to kind of do that whole like chess mindset where you plan ahead, because it's like, if you anticipate that you need this, and this to go off next turn, then you got to figure out whether you can afford to drop the rest of the stuff in your hand, or if that's even enough to keep you alive to do so. And then that kind of factors into things as well.
Yeah.
Or
even if you stay alive,
survive and everything.
Like, can you actually come back from this?
So. Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure, playing Aqua Force, it's kind of like, well, I can guard everything, but I'm gonna draw my turn, literally have Vanguard, and this thing that I'm top decking, which if it's a crit or like a trigger, then this is bad. So I might as well maybe just hope for a heal trigger and like be able to, if I heal off of that and then survive into my next turn, be better off. So that's probably also too. So if you're about to die, just maybe consider like, it's like, okay, I have like 6 cards in hand. It's gonna take all 6 cards. My opponent's gonna be at 9. What am I gonna do with only a Vanguard attack? Basically, in the worst case situation, it's kind of like, well, okay, I'm not gonna be able to do anything because I'm playing Aqua Force and I kind of need my rear guards. So I guess we'll just take this one, or it's kind of a different story, I guess, if you're playing something more control-y like Kagros, I guess, since they can technically still do stuff with just only Vanguard, if they top deck correctly as well, or XYZ, but there's not so much reliant on, if I top deck into this makes or breaks my turn, more or less. So I guess that's also the difference of, you need to know what your clan needs. So if your clan needs rear guards, then like the situation I said for Aqua Force, then it might be more worth, if you're dying this turn or surviving this turn with no cards in hand, to just maybe just hope on the heal trigger and healing and having a better off turn. It's kind of a different situation to like Kagros, where it's just like, just guard of everything and probably just bounce back from here.
Yeah.
So moral of the story,
overall,
Vanguard's complicated. Everything depends on what you're playing and what you're playing against.
Far more simple than some other games, but overall, thinking goes a long way, for sure.
It's definitely better than it was before, which you can just win technically by
autopilot.
Which I imagine some people kind of a little disappointed by now, just because Vanguard might have been just the real easy, thoughtless sort of game, that you play in between, or when you're bored with your other card game. But for
you
the
still
people,
can do technically, just not as easily.
Or you just don't have a as high win rate as you would before.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're playing super casually, then you're welcome to always experiment, and let us know in the comments of what you guys, if you agree or not. Since I know some people might be kind of like a little frustrated, just like, what do you mean? We can just give general advice, like early game, just no guard everything, or stuff like that. But it's definitely a lot more complicated. Because I mean, sure, we can just always generalize things, and Like I was asking in the beginning about generalizing things just because it's a little easier to have people that are coming in. It's like, oh hey, I'm new to the game. What should I do in this? And the answer they're probably not going to be looking for is, well, it's going to depend a lot, which is the correct answer, but it's also not the answer they want. So they're just going to go with the answer. It's just like, generally you want to do this. And it's like, I like that answer better. But if that's the answer you're looking for, then that might not be the answer.
It's just really unfortunate that as useful as generalized information may be to a new player in terms of what they actually can use, because they're not as sure about the in-depth mechanics and stuff, it's largely a learning experience type of game where it is far easier to play a deck and have someone be able to look at it and go, hey, you probably should have done this in this situation, and kind of get the experience yourself than really have this set of rules that you just are always going to follow. And if you do, then that's probably going to just come from you maybe watching YouTube videos or anything similar like that, and watching the gameplay and going, oh hey, yeah, okay, so they did that.
Yeah.
That way you kind of get that kind of sense of what's going on.
And the knowledge thing comes from too for guarding as well. As like an example I just remembered was, do you guard the first or second attack on a multi-attacking Vanguard? Which the answer can change very greatly depending on which multi-attacking Vanguard it is. Since, Sing Saver could be completely different from PBA. Since one actually stacks triggers on top of it and the other one doesn't. So, it's just kind of those things where it's like you need to learn by yourself, or just play it over and over again. Yeah, what cards do, which...
And yeah.
It's just generally like, just try it out, guard the first attack, see how that goes. Oh, well, I just got completely murdered. Maybe try that again, and then if that, if after a while it kind of becomes a trend, then it's like, okay, maybe I should try maybe guarding the second one and just no guarding the first one, or, Or if you're able to, just guard both of them, or no guard both of them. I guess that works too, either or.
Another thing that I would probably just want to point out to people, which doesn't happen too often, but I feel happens enough that it's relevant. Don't be like the characters in the anime. If you don't know what a card does, ask them to read the card, or just generally, look at the card, ask them about it, have them kind of, give you a general idea of what it does.
Yeah, probably ask first before you touch it too. Just like, oh, can I read that real quick? Instead of just going, touching the card already, just going, can I read that real quick?
Just grabbing the card or whatever. But, like basic common courtesy. But overall, if you don't know what it does, ask them about it. Ask about what it does. See if you can read the card, etc. Because knowing what a card does before you're dealing with it can go a long way, especially if you're new to whatever they're playing against, or you're not familiar with certain clans and stuff like that.
Or you just want to make sure that cards interact the way you think it does.
And you can always ask what they do even on drive checks, because it is public knowledge at the point of being drive checks, so you can confirm cards at that moment, just in case it might matter for you.
Exactly, so, which might actually matter if you're playing against something like, I don't know, D-Police, where it's kind of important to know, if I drive check a grade 3, that thing in guard, that you place in guard zone is going to be gone.
Or, for that matter, playing against something as a Kagura player or something, and being like, I can do this, this is resist. Oh. Whoops. Alright, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just those various situations of knowing what they do and largely saving your skin from whatever happens.
Yeah, so... I don't know. Anything else on guarding?
Not that I can think of.
Anyone else? Guarding? It's kind of a good thing, I guess.
I think we covered most of whatever I can think of off the top of my head, really.
Yeah, so I guess kind of just sum it up. So early game, it's going to very greatly depend on what you're playing and what your opponent is playing. Since if you're being rushed by your opponent, it, depending on the situation, it might be good to guard, it might be bad. There's not really a generalized yes or no sort of thing on early game guarding. Again, depends on what you're playing against and what you're playing yourself. first striding, so I guess mid game sort of guarding. You know, if your opponent's having first stride, then it might be kind of worth, even if the first stride ability that your opponent is on is kind of weak, it still might be beneficial to you to G guard and guard early or something like that, or just guard
If
early
you can
if
do
you're
so.
yeah, if you can do so. Like, you shouldn't be pushing down, you know, like your important cards just to guard, you know, unless it's something that destroys you and your entire deck for some reason. So kind of like that, and then kind of late game as well. So if you're having to decide on a 2 or 3 trigger pass to evaluate the situation, you know, see if you're going to be dying next turn, then it might be more worth to just go all in the Vanguard and hope and pray. Or if you're not, then to just maybe go the safer route, since, you know, it's safer is going to be probably better, especially if you're playing a normal deck that's not something super all in which case, yeah, if you're going super all in, then you need to just keep believing the entire way through. And then when you get to, you know, pretty much if you're dying, then, you know, it might be also worth to just no guard, save the cards in hand, hopefully live, and begin your next turn with something better, depending on which deck you're playing with and possibly playing against as well. And overall, there's not really just a generalized, you know, guard this, guard that, do this in early game, don't do this in early game sort of thing. As I'm sure most people will probably argue or just agree with, you know, either or. But, you know, in the comments, let us know
So
what
the
you
bottom
guys
line,
think.
just figure out your cards, know what they do, learn what your opponent card do.
Play Vanguard.
Bottom
Basically,
line of
that's-
this, yeah,
Just play Vanguard.
get good.
Good. Yeah, it'd be nice if Card Fun Online came out, because then we could actually play Vanguard, or most people can play Vanguard all the time, and,
Yeah.
you know, don't worry, it'll come out in 2020. After they've recoded the thing 16 times.
Yep.
That better not
Alright.
come true.
Where we'll have Vanguard GGG on the 3DS.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Vanguard, GG. That'll be the day. But yeah, in the comments below, let us know what you guys think. Agree, disagree. You know, be sure to let us know, either angrily or happily. And yeah, also if you guys want to be, you know, if you guys want to hear something else, or, you know, something in particular, let us know in the comments as well. Since we're not too sure if you guys want to actually hear us rambling on about guard, since that it's kind of more of a beginner thing, which we're probably going to be doing like a beginner's guide, I guess, later sometime in the show. But, you know, this is kind of a thing, I guess, for more newer people, but, you know, let us know what you guys are interested in, since I imagine most people here are kind of more veterans and just, you know, familiar with the game, so this might be kind of like just old information. So, you know, let us know what the dank, interesting things you guys want to hear us talk about, ramble on about. And yeah, if you guys stick around this long, thank you guys for, you know, listening to our beautiful voices on All in the Vanguard. You know.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. You know, again, be sure to like and everything if you guys want to listen to us more. It helps out a lot. You know, if you're one of those people like me that is too lazy to comment, then, you know, liking is probably the best way to let us know that we're actually doing a good job. You know, golden star, A for effort. But yeah, hopefully.
and yeah, if there's anything else,
Effort.
just let us know as well.
F for effort, alright.
All
Yeah,
right.
just let us know, in general. So, hopefully see you guys in the next episode. And, yeah. Hope to see you guys soon.
See you there. Later.